Hi, I'm going to be reading part 2 from the original version of the Kota. If you missed part 1 last week, you can go ahead and look that up from last week's post. So here's part 2. It was the worst of times. Rave, are you in position? Tigress, or Alex, telepathically signaled to Rave, or Zach. They were in position to take out a Dominion outpost in former Germany. Yeah, I've dropped off the package and I'm clearing out now. The signal came back through the radio. Tigress and I sat motionless under a force field she had created. Not a minute later, we saw an explosion as a plane lifted off the ground. Mission accomplished, Bullseye. Let's go home. I heard White Wolf, or Ryo, radio me. Another excellent one for the books, guys. I radioed them as we signaled the plane. That was the 100th or so mission we had done. The war had been going well for weeks, months, years, or however long we had been doing this. I was tired of war. The underground battled the Dominion with us at their side. Together, we were slowly wearing down their forces. At home, we were occasionally Lori, Zach, Alex, and White Wolf. A reporter, scientist, secretary for the mayor, and FBI agent living under one roof. Somewhere along the way, we had all needed to change our names. Keeping up the disguise was getting harder and harder. Sometimes it was nearly impossible to remember which identity we were using. We couldn't really have normal lives, but no one in the outside world noticed much. Everyone was busy trying to stay alive. At the underground, we helped the civilians who had escaped the Dominion. Colonel McQueen was appointed their leader. He was good for the job. Counterstrike was his right-hand man. Interesting. So now Colonel McQueen, I believe, is Joel K-God, and Counterstrike is now a bad guy. So I don't know when that happened. That man was not good for the job. He had a secret hatred for me and my brother that we never did learn of. Many of my memories were permanently blocked because of his healing sessions with me. In any case, the underground was like a second, or should I say third, home to us. Many of their operatives had mutated abilities, and so we formed a common ground with them. Alex's first assignment with the Hood was soon. She didn't particularly trust the Hood. From what she had heard, there were a group of baddies little better than the Dominion. Still, if McQueen thought it was safe, she would go along with it. Besides, she didn't want to stick around with that Counterstrike man anyway. Her healing session would just have to wait until after this mission. As she descended into the underwater base, she wondered which operative from the Hood she was supposed to contact. McQueen had hinted that it had something to do with the Wraiths, the new alien breed. It didn't take long to find out. As she opened the elevator door, Avant met her. He didn't look so bad. He signaled for her to be quiet and led her to a side room. This is now actually a mission that Ryu or White Wolf goes on in the new version. The Wraiths have infiltrated this base, he told her while keeping his gun ready. We have to find and destroy all of them. I've already checked, and I don't think there are any surviving civilians still in the base. Tigress knew well enough what that meant. That everyone's dead? Okay. We better split up and keep in radio contact. I don't need a radio, but you will need some way to reach me. He understood and ran out a side door. 10 minutes later, she was up to her waist in water and shining her flashlight down the tunnel she was in. Yvonne had radioed and told her how he had found a group of civilians still alive and hiding. She was now supposed to make her way out of the slime and join him to attack the location the civilians had mentioned. As she approached the location, she heard gunfire. Running into an open underwater maw of sorts, she saw Avant firing away at the Wraiths. They were huge, full of teeth and claws, dripping slime, and, most importantly, closing in. Yeah, fine, I'll check it out. White Wolf was tired of running to every little disturbance in the atmosphere. Just because there had been a few portal openings lately didn't mean he had to check every little distortion. Still, as he approached this possible portal, he got an eerie feeling. The stick suddenly thrust forward in his hands, and he lost control of the plane as a portal opened right before him. There was nothing he could do, so he watched as the swirling orange, red, and yellow lights of the portal sucked him in. As quickly as he went into it, he was out of it. He was shoved out into, what? A purple sky? The ground was coming up quickly, and he pulled the plane to land evenly, just in time. He rolled out of the cockpit and looked around at a strange planet. The trees were blue, the sky, yes, it was purple. Not far off, he saw 3 Shicks holding a group of odd-looking creatures at gunpoint. Carefully, he crept up behind the Shicks and leveled them both with a single punch. I come in peace. White Wolf had always wanted to say that. An Earthling? The squatty green blob grunted at him. That kind of surprised him. You speak English? Yes, we have studied your dimension for some time, said the apparent leader of the group. She was taller than White Wolf and had a tail. Even stranger was the fact that her skin had a green tint. We thank you, for they are about to kill us. We don't have a lot of time before they come, another tall woman said urgently. Her skin had a red tint. Do you have a way that we can escape? White Wolf realized they were in trouble, so he led them to his plane, and soon they were on their way. Luthine, the green lady, somehow opened a portal. White Wolf had control of the plane this time, so he flew into it without any problems. This time the portal didn't shoot him out as quickly either. He wished it had, for when he looked around, all he could see were ship planes waiting for them. The aliens and everything clearly got cut entirely. I don't remember that at all. Squatty green blob. Yeah, that doesn't really fit with the world building anymore. Running to Avant's side, Tigress blasted several wraiths before they had to retreat to another room. This is a diving room, Avant yelled at her. See there? Those tubes are tanks the civilians use to go outside the compound. If we open the tubes and trap the wraiths in here, they'll drown. As if on cue, a clawed fist pounded on the door. Scrambling about, Tigress and Avant climbed onto a table to grab at levers above them. Hold on to me and put one of your force fields around us so we don't die with them. She obeyed just as the fist punched through the glass and 5 wraiths leapt through the door. With her telekinetic abilities, Tigress switched off the floodgates and the tubes exploded. Water swirled around them and knocked the wraiths against the walls. 5 days later, Tigress and Avant joined the civilians who had returned to the base. A feast had been prepared in their honor. Looking toward the door, Tigress saw Avant leaving. You're not staying? She yelled as she ran to catch Avant. No, give the people my apology. The hood isn't exactly encouraged here. He tried to smile and then turned and walked away. Tigress stood silently, watching him leave. A week ago, she had had the same opinion of the hood. Good for little, bent on destruction, slightly above the Dominion. Now, what was her opinion of them? All she knew for certain was that she liked this one. White Wolf had to maneuver carefully to avoid smashing into the other planes. His passengers lurched from side to side as they swerved and cranked the speed. There was a portal opening. I know, I see it. White Wolf didn't know who talked to him, but he didn't care. The important thing was that there was a portal opening not far ahead. Sticking his tongue out in concentration, White Wolf dodged the plane's fire. They weren't 10 kilometers away when he felt a gun being pushed against him. Turning around, he saw all the aliens had been surrounded by sheiks who must have stowed away on his ship. He was just about to surrender when the skinniest alien somehow managed to shoot a sheik. While the sheiks turned to confusion, White Wolf took care of the sheik with the gun. The rest of the aliens joined in, and soon they recovered control of the plane. Who's ready for Earth? White Wolf asked. He sped away from the sheik ships and slipped through the portal. The last big thing I remember happening to me was when I learned of Silver Eye's death. She was my closest friend at the Dominion, and I never would have guessed she would turn. She was found giving information to the Underground, and Kruthor, the new Dominion leader, injected her with Prof X. She killed herself, rather than go to frag. I had often wondered why the Dominion didn't bother to track me down and inject me. I learned the answer to my question from an unlikely source. On an assignment from the Underground, I had to go to the capital of the continent, to the New Star Labs. There was a dinner party that night, and I was introduced to several scientists as Laurie Brandt, the reporter. As I was introduced to one scientist, Jet Taylor, I froze. It was Jonathan Chase. Hoping he would recognize me, I avoided eye contact until we were left alone at the table. Looking up, I saw he was as terrified as I was of being discovered. Have we met before? He asked cautiously when the others returned to the table. You look familiar. Perhaps once, I answered carefully while trying to let him know exactly who I was, but I do not remember ever meeting a Mr. Jet Taylor. That was maybe a little too close, but I had to be sure he understood. He did, and carefully excused ourselves from the table. Okay, that kind of stayed. Ray wasn't sure about trusting Matsuri. That definitely stayed. Sure, the guy was on the Underground side, but he also had tried to blow up his sister. True, she had been a Dominion elite at the time, but still, who wants to put their life in that kind of guy's hands? At the end of the game they were playing, Matsuri's score was equal to Rave's. They turned and walked to the locker room. Not bad for the new guy. Rave was impressed. Of course, you would have to be good. You worked with my sister. Yeah, Matsuri hesitated. Is she still mad about the whole explosion thing? Only a little. Rave's sarcasm was picked up on immediately, and his old feelings about this guy resurfaced. Why did you have to blow her up anyway? That's what... He trailed off. That's what someone in the Underground wanted. I couldn't do it, though. I ran back inside after the explosion and carried her out. Something about the way Matsuri had stopped himself caught Rave's attention. Clearly the guy had been given specific instructions not to reveal his commander. Who ordered you to kill Bullseye? Rave was no longer playing around. He had his suspicions about who was behind the whole conspiracy, but he needed proof. Matsuri eyed Rave carefully. What will you do if I tell you? Anyway, I think you already know. The man has been very interested in you and your sister all along. His telepathy is amazing, and I'm sure he'll leave you alone if you just keep going to the healing sessions. Matsuri looked around, knowing he had said too much, and picked up his things to go. Yeah, that's completely out now. Where have you been all this time? Jet, or Jonathan, asked as we stood overlooking the Capitol. I'm sure you've heard of the Kota. I tried to be vague, but he was pretty quick. I guessed that. I remember the thing on your arm, and when I saw the sign all over the papers, I figured it out. He sighed. I thought maybe my letter didn't get through in time. All this time I didn't know if you were dead or alive. I didn't dare contact the Kota. I thought you would still be in the Dominion. I nodded. What did you mean about the letter? I intercepted a transmission from the Dominion to a doctor saying that you were to be injected. I sent a letter to the Dominion as that doctor saying that I had injected you with Prothox as they had requested. I didn't know if it worked. I owe you my life, then. I had been wondering about him the whole time, too, but I didn't dare tell him of all my experiences. No, I'd say we're even. I let you live. I was just returning the favor. It's so much nicer than they are now. Rave stood silently as Matsuri left the room. His suspicions had been right. Counter-Strike had been behind everything from the beginning. Rave also knew that he couldn't just waltz up to the guy and demand an explanation. He would have to dig, and he knew where. That night, Rave crept silently out the window. No use waking the others if this didn't work. He jumped down into the deserted street and went to the place where they had first met Vidania. He knew she was powerful, and he knew she would find him. Vida, it was all he needed to say to get her to appear. She hated the abbreviated use of her name, and he knew it. Just as he had planned, she appeared at the end of the alleyway. Why have you come here? Her voice was just as raspy as he had remembered. It's not a full moon. He ignored her taunting and remembered his purpose. I need to know about Counter-Strike. You don't get along particularly well, so I figured you could tell me what I need to know. For once, Vidania was silent. Rave could tell she was examining him, and he wished he could turn and run. I don't like him. She didn't sound completely sure. He banished me for being a witch after I had, what do you call her? Bullseye? He doesn't like you or your half-sister because you remind him of his failures. She was almost spitting the words at him now, but he didn't understand. What failures? I never even heard of Counter-Strike until a couple years ago. How do we remind him of anything? She was obviously getting frustrated. Don't you get it? Can't you see? The answers you seek you don't want to believe. He was being toyed with now. I am old. I was old when I had your sister. Counter-Strike is older than I. You saw the birth of both you children. I saw the birth of one. What other man saw the birth of both, foolish boy? What more do you need? She screeched in her final decree and disappeared. All that remained was a puff of smoke. Alone, Rave stood frozen. Finally, he understood. I don't remember that at all. Apparently, Counter-Strike was our dad at one point. So, okay, that's the end of part 2. I think next week I'll probably be finishing up because I think that's the rest of it. So, stay tuned. Bye.